going on, y'all? Thanks for joining us again. Thanks for subscribing, hitting the notification button, and leaving a comment, thumbs up, everything you're doing to help build and support our channel with Bad Betty. So what are we doing out here in this beautiful country? What are we going to be talking about? Well, hopefully the clickbait introduction told you. Just kidding on that part. But anyways, as you may know, Bad Betty is a 2022 Winnebago EKKO. She's built on that Ford all-wheel drive Transit chassis. We love her. She's been proven and tested in all kinds of terrains, especially been watching our videos. And what we wanted to do is kind of reintroduce a few things about Bad Betty real quick. Some of the comments that we get both through YouTube, Instagram, and through one of our Facebook feeds is, tell us more, or can you tell me why I'd want this? Why did you go with that tire? Why do you have this front recovery package? Do you really use the winch? What about those lights? Why would I want to spend the money on these? Where'd you get that grill? And the list goes on. And some people said, man, it just looks like it sits a little more stout than the one that I have or what I'm considering. So we're going to take you through all of that. We're going to tell you everything we love about it and what brought us to these levels of the build, if you will. And at the very end, we might even refer to them as a couple Bad Betty packages just for fun. We'll tell you more about that. So where are we at here? We got our 2022 EKKO. And right now, as you're looking at her just in the front end, the first thing you might pick up on, besides this gorgeous front bumper, which we're going to go into detail on that, is what I like to refer to as this Raptor Grille. You can pick that up from Grant and his team at Freedom Van Go. We'll have a link for that. We love it. Very straightforward installation, made specifically for the fitment of these. So let's keep moving here. The second thing you're going to notice is we got these big Bad LP6s right here, Baja design. I'm going to talk more about that in a moment, but you can definitely find a video on that where I've done some installation stuff in our YouTube videos. And now let's just get down to one of my favorite products right here, which is the CATuned Off-Road Recovery Bumper right here with the 12K Warn VR winch here, Bluetooth remote. Now, why do we have this? Why might you want to consider it? And what are some of the benefits of it? And what do we know about the quality of it? So starting right there, why might you want to have one? Well, number one, it looks sexy. It looks good. Makes her look tough, right? I mean, that's a given. The design, the cuts, everything about it that you see right here is second to none. The other reason you might want one is there's a strong possibility maybe you're actually taking your EKKO and using it to its capabilities. It is an all-wheel drive vehicle. It can get off the beaten path. It's designed to get up into some different types of terrain and get you into places like this, etc. And maybe you're like me and you're just a recovery junkie, so to speak. You get out there and you love hitting those beaches, you love hitting those paths, and you're hoping, so to speak, selfishly speaking, that someone's stuck and in need and you can use your gear, or you're going to go get yourself intentionally stuck. So this is going to give you all the confidence in the world. The thing that I'd like to talk about real quick is CATunes makes these right here in the US out of Sacramento, California in Highlands. The other thing that is done, which I think is pretty impressive, when you're looking at the shackle point mounts here, right behind the Mad Max D shackles, if you just look at the integrity of that weld, that is second to none. But it's not just a face weld. This isn't just welded to the face. This actually goes all the way through and bolts to the frame rail. I think if we go to the driver's side, you'll get a very good view of where you can see the bolts just get right onto that frame rail. So those are designed, as you can imagine, to be second to none in strength. If you doubt it, check out Mad Max's, CATunes website. There's a whole video, 120 feet in there. They hang a Sprinter from the Mad Max shackles, okay? So one of the things when I was first looking at this and coming from an automotive background before I started my construction company was the quality piece of this. Where is it made? How's it being constructed? What's going on with how it bolts in the frame, etc. Because when you're going to start playing with the front end of your vehicle and you're thinking about using something to recover Bad Betty 11K plus or some other vehicle, you want to make sure that there is a product there that's designed and has been proven second to none. That is 3/16 DOM steel right there. All weld points, engineering behind it, how it goes to the frame rail, grade 8 nuts, bolts, hardware, the list goes on. The other thing that you're going to notice is that part of the design, they did a 2-inch front receiver. Now you might sit there and say, okay, well, why would I want a receiver in the front? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Let's say that you're at a boat ramp and the conditions or something don't lend themselves to recovering the boat with you backing into it, and you'd rather go forward because you're worried about your rear differential or something getting submerged in some water, etc. You can recover it from the front. The other thing you can do, which is pretty cool, it's actually in one of our videos where there's a hammock. You can just Suspend a hammock, chill out. You can carry bicycles, kayaks, just about anything you can imagine that doesn't obstruct your view, if you will, you could attach here. So that front piece is designed obviously as a receiver. The reason that I have this here is I typically don't use the front receiver for much other than to keep other folks from backing up to me in parallel parking. Had that happen in a Walmart and sent that to it a real quick message. That's a whole nother story. The other thing that you'll notice is that we've got this little black box here. And Max and his team actually designed that to take all of your front sensors, your adaptive cruise control information. It all goes right into here, very clean. Nothing changes. The vehicle doesn't know that anything's been moved. There's no reprogramming. There's nothing to be considered on that. So that was all brought in. Sometimes you're going to see different bumpers and configurations on these or other vehicles, and you need to make sure that whoever you're purchasing that from has done their homework and has considered something like this, because you're relying on those pieces within your vehicle, those electronics, to work properly. The other thing that you'll notice is that the way that it cradles this 12K Warn Winch right here. This is a Bluetooth controlled Warn Winch designed to well, minimally recover, unless you do some other stuff, 12,000 pounds right there. So knowing that Bad Betty's at least 11K, we know we can get her out of trouble, and we've done it. The other thing that you'll notice as part of the design is this tubular bar right here. It's obviously been welded as part of the integration of the bumper, but what's really nice, and I think gives it a little bit of a sophisticated look in some respect, is how the lights can be mounted. You could probably mount between 6 and 8 lights up here if you wanted to. I'm not sure that you would need to, but I believe that I've seen Grant at Freedom Van Gogh, he has a cluster going. It's a light guy. But for us, we knew that the Baja LP6 right here were more than enough. I think, Michelle, you would arguably say it changed your ability to drive on roads like this at night. You typically have night blindness. It's not something you're comfortable with. You hit these, we can land an aircraft. I think we might have even signaled a couple UFOs here once or twice, but that's a whole nother video. So at any rate, the Baja LP6s and the way that we wired these, and I can talk about this later, but it is again in one of our videos, we went with a trigger 6 RF frequency, meaning radio frequency control, so that we did not have to bring any wires in through the firewall. We just have a remote, if you will, and you can kind of take it in and out of the vehicle, do what you want. But I highly, highly encourage you to not only watch our video, check out our website, go to CATunes, go to Baja Designs, learn about their lighting technology, second to none. Now, as you'll notice on this bumper, and I've talked about this in some of my other videos, it kind of tapers down, and it actually has what I like to refer to as a bit of an integrated skid plate. And if you notice, not only is it giving some protection right here to some of the pre-intercooler components, but it also allows, pre-intercooler components, I apologize, but some of the intercooler, transmission, cooler, I mean, the list goes on, but it does give that protection, especially when you're taking different approaches. You can count on the fact that you are going to have a bit of a skid guard, which brings us into the other product that CATunes offers, and we just bolted on. It's one of our videos, an hour or less, is the CATunes skid plate right here. Just a bit ago, when Michelle was driving and we were looking for some different terrain to get into, I was glad we had that skid plate, and we'll just leave it at that as she giggles. But Max, I love you for making the modification and making that fit a vehicle like Bad Betty, because we protected a few things today. And so we've got the skid plate. Love that. Now let's talk a little bit about the skid plate. This is one of my videos. Somebody might be saying, hey, you know, why would I need a skid plate? I'm not out there in four-wheel drive and off-roading, overlanding, whatever it is. That is absolutely just part of it that you would require to, or that I would invite you to consider to have one. Think about it this way. You're driving down the interstate, and there's a lot of semis, and I might call them gators or whatever, the retreads that fly off the back of the semi. Those things are laying all over the road. They catch the under part of your chassis, they're going to tear some stuff up pretty quick. We've had it happen before. So you don't necessarily have to have all this equipment. Minimally, I'd get a skid plate underneath there. There are some vital components right there. I talk about them in one of our other videos. I'll have Michelle figure out how to do that fancy stuff in the video and leave a link. So we're talking about the CATunes. We're talking about the Baja LP6s. We talked about some of just the sexiness of the Freedom Van Gogh. I think what we'll do now is we're going to move into the tires. Then we're going to move into the suspension, and then we're going to take you on a little bit more stuff. So I'm going to have Michelle just swing around here real quick, and we'll catch you in one sec. All right, as promised, we're now on to tires. And again, I have a whole video on the Wildpeak AT3Ws and why we went with them, but we're just going to brief you on that. What you might notice is it's got a little bit more aggressive tread pattern here. These are a 225/75/16. The vehicle comes stock and equipped with a 205/75/16, which is a great tire. It does what it's supposed to do. It's fine, but it didn't really meet our needs, especially when we get up into some of the forestry roads. We go up into Mount Hood, we're on the snow, we get into terrain like this. We needed, for our purpose, a little bit more aggressive tire. I would also say, and Michelle would agree, when we put these on, I was expecting a lot more road noise. Ironically, I witnessed nothing about that. I did a lot of research on tires, and I'm not going to really go into it, but on my other rigs, my other vehicles, I have everything from the KO2s. I don't quite have the KO3s yet. I have some Hankooks. I've got another set of Falcons. And so far, this has been my favorite tire. We're not sponsored by Falcon, so that is just a non-biased opinion. And as you notice, all of the markings, we've got the winter snow mountain. She's somewhere on here. Ah, there we go, right there. So again, if you're in an area and they have a requirement for traction tires, this is going to meet the needs. But that's not where it stops. So think about this tire. When you think about going with a more aggressive tire and you think about stepping up, one of the things that everybody starts to get in a little bit worrisome about is, am I going to need some spacers? Am I going to need a lift kit? Am I going to need some suspension upgrades? When we did this tire, I specifically went with this size just to show people that you could do what I call a zero mod tire. This tire will bolt on without a suspension upgrade, a wheel change, or any rear spacers. So again, if you go from a 205 stock to a 225, on the 75/16s, they're going to go right on. I'll also leave some information in the description of the tire pressure we carry because we get a lot of questions about that. Now, what is the maximum tire you could go up with? You could probably go to a 265/75/16, but it's going to require 1-inch rear spacers. It's going to require a suspension upgrade, which is what we've done here. But again, if you wanted to say, hey, I want just a little bit more of a tire on here, I don't want to do a suspension upgrade, I want to keep things a little mild, we're not ready for that, you could just go ahead and go with the 225/75/16. So what we're going to do is now we're going to move into the VanCompass suspension upgrade we have right here. So I'm going to have Michelle kind of bring the camera in. I'm going to switch places and I'll be right back with you. All right, y'all, as you can see, the sheriff showed up and we were on private land and didn't know that, but we showed him the sign we read and he said the owner will probably be taking that sign off anytime because it was a little misleading, but he was quite the gentleman. Appreciate you, Wasco. Definitely a gentleman, and we're going to head to some new terrain. I'll show you the sign that we saw when we came in, and I even Googled it, and it was a little misleading, but again, hey, we're going to respect their property and their land, and we'll find a new location. All right, Bad Betty is at her new location here. As you know, we had to remove ourselves from some land that we didn't know was private. So let's get into the VanCompass suspension kit, why we went with it, some of the benefits that you can get out of it, and with the whole idea of that it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be overlanding off-road and going into some crazy terrain, but just overall the benefits you're going to get from ride quality. So let's just start with the front here. As you come underneath here, one of the first things that's going to give you a key indicator is we have a blue coil assembly here. But you may notice we also have the factory strut assembly. So I'm going to have Michelle just kind of pan back out there and we're going to talk a little bit about the front and then we'll move to the rear. So for us, we really wanted to get that extra 2-inch lift. Now, where does the 2-inch come from? I'll break it down real quick. When you're talking about the coil spring, you're going to get about 1.25 inches out of the coil spring. The particular blue coil spring that you see here that has been designed and engineered for this particular chassis was with the idea of keeping within the stock tolerances of the original factory Ford spring. So the tolerances are the same, but 1.25 inches difference in the height. Now, you noticed earlier I said 2-inch, so where's that other 3/4 coming in? At the very top of the strut, there is a spacer assembly, if you will. What VanCompass did is when they created that, in order to keep with the original caster and camber alignment specifications, they specifically engineered this, Rob and the team there at VanCompass, to meet that original camber and caster alignment specs, because once you're done with your suspension, you always want to go get an alignment immediately. If you don't, you're going to prematurely wear out your tires and you cause some other geometry issues within your suspension. So that's where you're going to get your 2-inch overall, 1.25 out of the coil, and the 3/4 inch, I'm going to call it the engineered spacer, that's part of the package, if you will. Now, some folks you'll see that are running Bilsteins. I'm a big fan of Bilstein. My whole background for 15 years was in suspension. That was my favorite shock in the world. When I got to considering the Bilstein strut for this, one of the things that kind of steered me away, at least for now, but I might go back into it, was some of the binding where it's going to happen, where the CV boot is with the front axle assembly. There's just enough there that's going to create some binding and some pinching in there. That may have been corrected. Some things may have moved on since the B6, or maybe Rob and the team have got some ideas around that. I've seen it. I know a few guys out there in the Facebook groups, and we've chatted, and they've had no problems. So I'm probably going to go that way. But for now, this is just the Topo 2.0 VanCompass kit for the all-wheel drive. I went with the heavy-duty one. I'll leave a little link on all that, and we'll talk more about it. So let's move to the rear. But before we get to the rear here, I'm going to go grab a mat, because I want to have Michelle be able to pan underneath here and show you those Falcon adjustable shocks, and basically how they're configured, how they go in, and what gets us to the 2-inch lift in the rear. So bear with me as I go to Bad Betty's wonderful garage and grab my mat. You guys can enjoy the view. All right, I'm at the rear of the vehicle. As you can tell, we got 2 dualies sitting back here, and I'm going to do my best to hold the camera steady. And you're going to see here that we have the rear Falcon adjustable shock here. There's the dial. The settings, depending where you set this, is going to determine how the vehicle feels to you in respect to the travel with the shock, whether it's firm, a little bit looser, how much joust you're going to get and rebound on that shock. The other thing that you're going to notice is right here, there is a block spacer and a big U-clamp. Part of the suspension upgrade that gets us into that lift has got a lot to do with the block spacer, the U-clamp. We're not changing out the actual spring configuration here, but we are going with the Falcon adjustable shock. The thing that I love about this is we've been able to actually play with the tuning on this quite a bit. And I would say Michelle and I have figured out what works best for us. But what VanCompass does very well is in the instruction sheet, they explain, like, turn the dial, move the knob, set what your setting is. It's pretty downhill from there. I'll actually demonstrate that again. You would turn this. I'm not going to do it now because I like my setting. And you lock it into place. But again, it's that simple. You don't even necessarily have to climb underneath the vehicle to make the adjustment. You could actually, and I'm going to swing back out of here, make the adjustment right from here if you did not have the T-Rex arms that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and pull back out and give Michelle back the phone, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what we've experienced. All right, so we were just underneath the vehicle, and I was showing you the Falcon adjustable shocks and how easy it is to manipulate and or change the settings, depending if you're looking for comfort, in respect that you like that nice springy whatever, you want a little bit more stability, a little firmer ride. We tend to set ours at the more firmer setting because of the type of conditions that we get into. I always think about that I like it as good on the rebound as I do on the joust. I want it to settle real quick, but some people like the marshmallow ride, but that is the advantage of doing that. In the beginning, I talked about why we went with VanCompass. Not only, obviously, we wanted the lift, we wanted to get Bad Betty a little bit more off the ground, but the engineering that's behind it. Again, we're not sponsored by VanCompass. I'm giving you my non-biased opinion that I have been very, very satisfied with their suspension kit. I've had 0 issues with it. It fit as it was intended. The instructions were clear. Now, is this something you could do at home on your garage floor or in your shop? If you're very mechanically inclined, you've got a spring compressor, you feel confident and comfortable taking apart the front strut assembly, which is a little bit of an undertaking, then I would say go for it. Otherwise, I would encourage you to find a garage that you trust, a mechanic you trust. It is a very straightforward installation. The instructions are very clear. Pay the fee, or the dues, if you will, to them, get it installed, immediately get your alignment and move from there. So I think what we should do is we should move on to talk about those stages, what they mean, recap everything. And then if you guys have any questions, or I moved along too fast, or maybe I didn't elaborate enough, leave a comment. I always get back to people. I think you could look at all my comments and that would be more than a testimony to that. I love chatting with you all. And Michelle and I have also been talking about it. If you think you'd be interested in this, we want to do a live YouTube presentation with y'all. We want to be open to a Q&A. We want to sit around, walk around, do whatever you want to do, answer questions, and do our best to be as attentive as possible. So if that's something you're interested in, give us a comment, a like, a thumbs up, whatever it takes, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to have Michelle switch the camera around here, and we're going to recap everything. All right, thank you guys. We're going to recap. As you can see, we got this gorgeous view still behind us, and we're loving it. When we started out the video, we kind of talked about a lot of things. We talked about the recovery package, the lights, the Raptor Grille, the lift. We talked about the tire package. We talked about some of the reasons that we picked up and decided to move Bad Betty into these stages, if you will, on some of the products. And then at the very beginning, I also told you that as we summed it up, we would kind of talk about the packages that you might consider in doing. So one of the things that we recently did is we created a very, very good relationship with CATuned Off-Road. They're not only a sponsor of ours now, but we actually carry some of their products, if not all their products, in respect to the Ford Transit. We've also partnered with V-Line. They're out of Salem, Oregon. I'm going to leave a link and some information right there. They are very familiar with all the CATuned applications. Ben is the guy. He builds out vans. His background, his knowledge is second to none. That is a great installation shop. He's actually growing September, October-ish. There's a big thing coming on with his new shop. I also talked about Freedom Van Gogh, the Raptor Grille, the ease of install. We have a video on it, and Freedom Van Gogh has a video on it. Very simple, looks sexy, gives it a tough look, nice Raptor Grille. I also invited you to do your own research on the Baja LP 6s. Baja design is second to none in the industry of lighting development and technology. No, we are not sponsored by Baja Industries at all. We love their lights. They're more than worth the money. We are, however, affiliated now and part of CATuned Off-Road, as I've mentioned in many videos. I've also talked about the installation process. I've talked about the benefits of the recovery package, the Warn Winch. We talked about the receiver hitch, and the list goes on and on. We've talked about the strength of Mad Max D-shackles here. One of the other things that we spoke about as we were doing our video was the suspension upgrade in the tires. I talked and shared with you that in another video of ours, and I'll make sure that Michelle puts some links to it, that the Falken tires, why we went with them, how we've tested them, how we've used them. We're not sponsored by Falken. We love the tire. How you can do this tire with a zero mod upgrade, meaning no suspension lift, no need to do rear spacers. Again, you'd be going from a 205/75/16 to a 225/75/16. I'll let you know in the description the tire pressures that we run. There's no interference in the rear with the dualies. If you wanted to step up to the next level, you would need to do the VanCompass suspension upgrade. We talked about that you would also need to go with the 1-inch spacers in the rear if you wanted to go with a 265/75/16 tire and or above the 225. Oh, before we walk away, let's talk about that skid plate. We have a video demonstrating right in my driveway the easeability, if you will, of the installation of the CATunes skid plate right here. Again, do not think of skid plates as just being primarily for overlanding or getting off the beaten path and four-wheel driving and all those other things. Think about it that you're going down a highway, chunk of a tire, gator if you will, comes right off, catches the underside. You can take out some vital components really quick. Now, as we move to the rear, I'd shared with you how easy it is to manipulate and or change the settings with the Falken shocks that VanCompass incorporates with the VanCompass 2.0. I like to call it the Topo 2.0 suspension upgrade. You can get that through CATuned, V-Line Vans. You can go directly to VanCompass. Rob and his team, they respond better through emails and or direct messaging, but they are a team of experts. This is what they do. So I'm going to tell you that if there's anything you want to do that has to do with getting your EKKO to the next level, CATuned, VanCompass, Freedom Van Gogh, of course, us, the EKKOnesters, Bennett V-Line Vans, we'll have all the resources there. Reach out, talk to them. If not, speak to us. If I don't have the answer, I'll find it. And last but not least, I wanted to say thank you for subscribing hitting the notification button, leaving a comment. And I think that all the YouTubers say smashing the thumbs up, so to speak. I think that's what they do. They kind of go like that. But we're still learning. They smash it. Anyways, we enjoy this. We hope you enjoy it. And if you made it this far in the video, I'm super grateful. And outside of that, do you have anything else, Joe? No. Did we cover it all? You covered it all. Oh, wait. The Bad Betty packages. Yeah. Bad Betty packages. Okay, really quick. Swing with me, guys. Okay, they're not in any particular order. Bad Betty packages. Where can you start? You can start with a tire upgrade. Let's just call that stage 1 Bad Betty package. Going from 205 to 225, 75, 16, 0 mod. Second thing, let's say you want to talk about recovery. CATuned Off-Road Bumper. Warn Winch. You can add that. Not necessary, but I recommend adding it during the installation. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it twice. The other thing we talked about is the lights. So we could say tires, front recovery package. We could say lighting. Maybe we'll call that stage 1. Maybe we'll move to stage 2, which is suspension, tires, bumper, lights. Maybe we go to stage 3 with the Bad Betty package and we go tires, suspension, lights, front recovery package, skid plate. Then we take it to stage 4 and we throw the Raptor Grille on there just for kicks, right? So if you're interested in any of the Bad Betty stuff, again, it's not our stuff. We just love it. Just let us know. The other thing is we do have some of our merch. I always wanted to say that. So hit us up. We got some merch. There you go. All right, peace, y'all. Till next time.